Hello and welcome back to the Battle Room. My name is Colin. Today I've got another amazing, awesome, cool, and sexy tier list video. So today we're going to be going through the Reg F Pokemon. This is currently after the Knoxville Regional, so we've still got another European Regional. So if you watch this in the future, I'm sorry, it's probably a little dated, but hopefully by then I've made another tier list video. So let's begin. Venusaur. Absolute garbage. Not even worth talking about. Really, for real. Venusaur, I mean, okay, it's not absolute garbage, but it's not great. I really don't think there's much use for it. I think with the popular, Tailwind being popular, Trick Room being popular, it just feels like Venusaur is really mid and really bad. Clefairy, I gotta put in B. I haven't seen it be used, but like I think the power of Eviolite, Follow Me, Friend Guard is just pure strength, pure power. And I think that this Pokemon has to be good in some degree, but we just haven't seen it, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is truly Venusaur tier. Next up is Hisuian Arcanine. I gotta put an A. I think this Pokemon is really well positioned. It low-key might be A+. We'll see later, but I think this Pokemon is really strong. It's great into Incineroar. It gives you Intimidate. Its Rock Fire typing is great offensively, and obviously we got Terra, so you don't have to worry about how horrible that is. Just a really, really good Pokemon right now. I also think Goldengo is in a similar vein. Toller Web just won with Goldengo, so it's very strong Pokemon still. But I think you need to really commit a lot of resources to setting it up. But luckily, there's a lot of Pokemon that really enable Goldengo, such as Waterpon or Incineroar or Tornadus. There's so many Pokemon that make this Pokemon good. That was just basically Tolber's team, by the way. But there's also other Pokemon that make it bad, such as Incineroar, such as Fluttermane. There's less Heatran, but still, it's still kind of a Pokemon that you have to commit a lot of resources to, and you have to really focus on setting up. Now, after Portland Regionals, I actually recorded a tier list video, didn't upload it because it was bad, and I realized there's another regional happening right after, so I was like, I'm not doing that. But I had this Pokemon in S tier, but this Pokemon has really dropped off. I think Chien-Pao, it's obviously still a good Pokemon. It enables a lot of strong Pokemon, but the Chien-Pao Dragonites of the world don't really exist as much anymore, and I think a lot of, with Farigiraf rising to power, I think Chien-Pao and his buddies have kind of fallen a little bit, but that doesn't mean the Pokemon is bad. It still enables a ton of other Pokemon. Any physical attacker in the game benefits from Chien-Pao existing. So it's like, is this Pokemon really that bad? No, but is it really like S tier? Hell no. I think it's just really, really solid, and I think Chien-Pao will rise once again. I would say Chi-Yu is actually it's definitely like A tier. I think it's been rising in terms of how good it is. I think a lot of people are starting to realize that Chi-Yu Flutter is still goated and still good. It's still good in Tailwind. It's done really well at the last tournament. So I think there are a lot of options, a lot of different team choices you can make to add Chi-Yu to the team. I believe it got top 4 there. I know it got top 4. I'm not sure if it got, yeah, it only got one top 4, but it's still definitely a strong Pokemon. Definitely don't want to sleep on Chi-Yu. I think it's very real. Roaring Moon strikes me as a similar vibe to like Goldengo, where like you need a lot of resources to get this Pokemon going. Obviously infamous Ladder Warrior Jude loves Roaring Moon, and so we see a lot of Roaring Moon through Marco Fierro or through Neil VGC. So there's a lot of Roaring Moon teams out there. I think Roaring Moon is a good Pokemon. It's just that it does need a lot of resources. It needs the Amoonguses, it needs the Iron Hands or Incineroar to really help it set up and get going. We're not seeing as much support of Roaring Moons. That job has kind of been shifted to Gouging Fire. But I still think it's a good mon. Like, you have to imagine that Roaring Moon is still pretty solid. It just requires a lot of resources, and I'm sure we'll see innovations on Roaring Moon as we go along. Iron Leaves is bad. Probably better than Venusaur, though, let's be real. Wow, Venusaur doesn't want to move. There we go. Okay. But yeah, Iron Leaves not good. Sinestcha has got to be probably that B tier. It's like another niche support Pokemon. I think that Paul Ruiz had a really cool team. This was back in Reg E. That was really cool that abused how good Sinestcha can be. But I don't think we're seeing a lot of it right now. I think it's still got some sort of place in the meta, but it's kind of that really, really niche. Like, I think you need a really specific good team to really make it shine. Whew. Okay. This next one is fire. Waterpon has to be S tier. I think this Pokemon, we just saw it pass Fluttermane in terms of usage. This Pokemon is simply the GOAT right now. It gives you so much roll compression. It gives you so much in one slot. So what makes Waterpon good? I don't think it's as good as like I think there's two kinds of broken. Fluttermane is like, oh, this is dealing so much damage. Everything is dying broken. And then there is like the Incineroar broken, where you get so much util, so much, you get util, you get roll compression, you get support, utility out of one Pokemon. And I think Ogerpon kind of is like a mix of both, but I would say leaning more towards Incineroar. You can Follow Me. It's a grass type, so you can Follow Me Spore. Huge, right? It's good into Incineroar because it's a water type. Water Grass is awesome typing defensively. It also gets a sick Terra. Boosting your special defense is awesome as it lets you combat Pokemon like Fluttermane and Chi-Yu. You know, much better. Golden Go as well. And also it ditches your annoying grass typing. So you just have all these like individual pieces: Water Grass, Follow Me, Immune to Spore, Spiky Shield, just icing on top. You can run Swords Dance sets. I mean, we're mostly seeing just Follow Me, but you could run Swords Dance. It's got some good moves. It's got a lot of options, and I just think it makes Ogerpon like the queen of the game right now. Obviously, I think Fluttermane, it did have more usage than Fluttermane in Day 2 of Knoxville, but that doesn't mean Fluttermane is like worse or dying in any way. It's just that Ogerpon is just so good into almost everything you can see. It seems to me that having Ogerpon and Fluttermane is just essential on most teams. They provide amazing synergy with each other, and they also provide amazing utility to the team. So I think it's just a lot of Ogerpon plus Fluttermane is just so good right now. This is definitely the first S tier Pokemon. Ogerpon Grass is cool. I mean, the Ogerpon is so awesome, and then this guy's just, he's cool. He gets Defiant. It's definitely a cool Pokemon. I think with Incineroar being back in the game, Incineroar is very popular right now. He's definitely like viable. It's a good mon. I think it's A. It's definitely solid. I think Archelodon is also in that same kind of boat. I think Archelodon reminds me of Roaring Moon and Golden Go, where you have to commit all these resources to it. Because in the perfect world, you have Tailwind up, you have Rain, and you have like Fake Out Live next to Archelodon, and you have no fake outs on the enemy team. Like, it's just like one of those Pokemon that requires a lot of careful positioning. But when the conditions are set and right, this Pokemon will just sweep your team. I've used a lot of Archelodon Rain. It's a really fun Pokemon, but I just think it's got to be like A to B tier. I'm going to lean A right now. I think it's better than like Ogerpon Grass. But it's a cool Pokemon. It just requires a lot of team efforts. Salamence is neat. I don't think it's very good, though. I'm going to put it in B, though. It's still got that utility. The problem is Salamence was really good into like the Urshifu Water, Incineroar, Rillaboom like kind of core. It's great into Urshifu Water, but the issue is Urshifu Water is dying. It's going extinct. So that means Salamence's main niche of being awesome is no longer being awesome. He just kind of blows. So I'm gonna put him in B. I'm gonna lower him. So next up is Metagross. I think Metagross is a really cool Pokemon, but I can't justify putting it any higher than B+, just because I think a lot of the Pokemon above it, like just Archelodon, Roaring Moon, Arcanine, Golden Go, Chi-Yu, Chien-Pao, even Waterpon, all hit Metagross super effectively, except for Waterpon, or neutrally, right? So it's just kind of like, it's a strong Pokemon for sure, because it's an awesome Steel type, but it just kind of seems like its only niche is destroying Fluttermane, which is a great niche. But that's why I think it has some viability. I just think that Metagross is kind of, it's just like really the definition of mid right now. Like, I totally could see it doing well, but it would have to be like such a specific, nuanced team that makes Metagross shine that I just don't know if I can justify using Metagross right now. PZ's bad. I don't know. This Pokemon is really neat. I gotta put it in B because it's cool. Because Terra Stellar is like, this is the dream Terra for Superior here. It allows it to hit, you know, that huge Leaf Storm, and then you're boosted. Then you can hit him with a huge Terra Blast Stellar. It's just a cool mod. I don't think it's that good, but it's cool, dude. It's cool. So let's talk about Entei. I think Entei is really, like, Entei was the GOAT. At the beginning of the format, everyone was saying, like, oh, Incineroar is a fraud. Entei is the true GOAT. This Pokemon is so broken. But I think Entei might be the fraud. Now, I think Entei and Hisuian Arcanine fill a similar role. I don't know which one's better. I'm going to say Entei for now, but I think both of them are a similar role, which is a fire type that resists Fairy. Now, that is something that Incineroar cannot claim. I think it's a huge deal with how good Fluttermane is. Being an actual resistant to Fairy type is awesome. And I think Entei and Arcanine accomplish that similar role, and that's why we're seeing a lot of them still being used. That Dark typing really is quite the liability now. But I think Entei and Arcanine are both like, they both kind of counter each other in a way, but one's got Stomach Tantrum, the other one is Rock Slide. They can both Terra. It's really messy. Entei's obviously naturally faster, so that's why we'll put him above Arcanine. But for the most part, they accomplish a similar role. Huge fire type damage. You can run Life Orb, you can run Band, Assault Vest. You can kind of do whichever you want. They run similar items, and I think Entei is still good. It's just not as good as it was at the beginning of the format. But it's still a mon that we're going to see, and it's still a mon that people are going to continue to use. I think it's good. I think Entei is really good. Tyranitar's probably superior tier. It's got a niche. It's definitely not like a trash mon. Like, you could use it. Sceptile, get out of here. Dusclops is also, like, cool. Like, these Pokemon down here are, like, definitely viable. And I think, like, it could win a major. It could do fantastic. It's just, like, you need a really specific team to really let that Pokemon shine. I don't think we've seen it, but I think like Dusclops has viability. It's good with Ursulina Blood Moon. It's got a lot of positive traits about it. It's just like, why not use Farigiraf, right? That's the thing. Registeel is probably about Metagross tier. It's a cool Pokemon. It's good into Flutter Mane, Iron Defense. It's probably the best Iron Defense body press. It's a good mon. It's a good mon. It's just that it kind of requires a lot of resources, and sometimes those resources aren't fun to give to a Reggie. Latias. It's definitely probably A tier. I think Latias is pretty cool. It has a lot of support options. It's definitely fallen off. I think it was very popular at the beginning of the format, but now it's kind of like, why not just use Tornadus? And I gotta say, that moves it to B tier for me. I do think it's still a usable Pokemon, but I think it's just like, why not use Tornadus if you're gonna set up Tailwind? Heatran is also like, I think Heatran's B. It's just that Heatran sucks in the water pond, and a lot of the common Pokemon just have like, it just doesn't feel as oppressive as it once was. The Ogerpon existence alone hurts it a lot, but there's a lot of other Pokemon like Incineroar that do really, really well in the Heatran that make it just kind of a liability. It never consistently one-shots Flutter Mane either, so I guess you're B, buddy. It was the king for a while. At Worlds, Heatran was so good, and now it's kind of eh. I think Cresselia falls into the supportive B tier, where like it is cool. Like Cresselia has cool traits about it. It's so good into Amoonguss, but again, Amoonguss isn't even super popular because of stuff like Waterpond. So it's like, I don't know, why not just use Farigiraf? But I do think Lunar Blessing is a sick broken move. It's just that it's just not being used a ton. And I think that you'd rather just use Farigiraf for Trick Room, or you'd rather, yeah, you'd just rather use Farigiraf. That's it. I think Lilligant is, again, it's neat. It's good in Sun. I just think it's cancer. I hate this Pokemon with a passion. Amoonguss is definitely A. I think Amoonguss's big issue is Waterpond right now, but I feel like Amoonguss is still like such an issue, because if Waterpond is just pressing Follow Me over and over, Amoonguss feels really good, but Waterpond can also just ignore Amoonguss and hit the partner. So I think you just need to like, Amoonguss is good, but it's just that there's a lot of annoying stuff for it. We obviously see all these fire types too. There's a lot of fire types that are viable. We haven't even got to Incineroar or Ogerpon Fire. So like, I think it's still a GOAT mon, and I think you have to respect it in your building and your play. But there's just a lot of tools that allow you to actually hurt Amoonguss. But again, it can also just Terra as well. So it's really hard to pin Amoonguss, and for me, that's what makes Amoonguss always like a really high tier Pokemon in a Terra format, is that like, even if you lead your fire type into Amoonguss, it can just Terra water, and then you're just sitting there looking like an idiot, because as it puts your whole team to sleep. So to me, Amoonguss is always the GOAT, and it will always be at least A+ tier. I'm biased towards that one. I think Terrakion sucks, but it's annoying. You have to respect it. Like, Whimsicott Terrakion is very real, and it is very annoying to deal with. But I think Terrakion is a really mid-mon. Torn is definitely A tier. I'm gonna put it above Chiampao. I think Torn is so good right now. Tornadus access to turn 1 Tailwind is insane. Prankster Tailwind is broken. Torn mirrors are everywhere. I think Tornadus is just, it's so good. I'm not gonna say it's S tier, because there's obviously a lot of obvious counterplay to Tornadus, such as pressing the Trick Room button with Farigiraf. But I think Tornadus is still very, very good, and Tailwind mirrors are going to be everywhere. You have to respect what it can do. Also, the mix-up of Tornadus is so insane, because you don't even have to bring it, but the threat of it alone is huge. It's just, the mon is just so good. Back Tailwind is good. Front Tailwind. Not bringing it. Like, literally not bringing it is a cool strategy with Tornadus, and that's how fun and awesome counterplay Priority Tailwind is, but it's whatever. Tornadus is a loser. I hate that guy. But he's very good. Lander's Eye is still pretty good. I think Lando Eye is still definitely a strong Pokemon. Yeah, I mean, Earth Power is insane. Its speed stat is like perfect. It outspeeds a lot of the common Pokemon. Everything right here, it just perfectly outspeeds by 1 point and just explodes them with Earth Power or forces them to Terra. But commonly, it's almost impossible to Terra out of Poison Ground. Coverage is just absurd, and he just needs that, and he's good to go. You can run Rain Dance with him, so he can spam Sandsear Storm. You could just run Sandsear Storm. You can run Sub. I think his moveset is just so figured out, and he's just so clinical and effective at what he does. Landorus continues to be A tier. It's better than Amoonguss, but it's just so good. He's so good. Lando T is actually kind of like, he's kind of bad. I don't think he's like trash. He's definitely better than Latias, but he's not what he once was. He's still got that niche of that Choice Scarf, Terra Blast flying user, but it's just not as important as it once was. Tailwind being everywhere really hurts him, and I think that Landorus T is just really mid. I think we'll have to find a new way to reinvent him or make him better. All right, now it's time to talk about Incineroar. This guy is the GOAT. He is back in S. He's so good. A month ago, I wouldn't have put him in S, but right now, I think Incineroar is clearly showing that he's one of the best Pokemon in the game, winning 3 regionals in a row. He's back on top. He's back on top. Obviously, 2 of them were the same team with Wolf's team, but then Toller just won with another team that featured Incineroar. Incineroar's back on top. The Mon is undisputed GOAT. He's so good. What is there to say? You guys know what he does. He fakes out. He intimidates. And then you just feel, he presses Flare Blitz too, usually. And then that last move is whatever you want, usually Parting Shot. I think I already said Parting Shot. He sometimes runs his Dark moves. He can run Helping Hand. He just keeps getting better. You can run AV, you can run Snarl. There's so many options with this Pokemon, and I think he's just disgustingly broken. He pairs extremely well with Waterpon. He pairs extremely well with Flutter Mane. There's just so many options. He's just good. He's just broken. Yeah, there's nothing else to really say about Incineroar. He's just like one of the best Pokemon in the game for a reason, and he's gonna keep winning. Primarina, B tier. I think Prim is actually pretty cool. I like it more than Landorus. It's Fairy Water typing is pretty awesome. Obviously, it matches up well into a lot of the stuff, but it's being contested by one of the best Pokemon in the game. So it's like, which water type would you rather use? And my answer is Ogerpon every day. I think that almost makes it go into B tier. I think it's a B tier. Better than Landorus? I was trolling there. No, that's a B tier one. I think Rillaboom is still very good. I think it's definitely like A tier. I think it's lost a lot of its power. It was one of the best Pokemon in the game for a while. I think it was so good in Regulation E. But I think with the introduction of Farigiraf rising in the meta, it's very good. The introduction of more dragons and just more counterplay to Rillaboom, like Gouging Fire, Raging Bolt, just make it a little bit easier to deal with. I think that we're seeing just more protection from priority as well. So I think that it's a little bit just worse. We're seeing Indeedee, we're seeing side spam teams. So it's like, I think Rillaboom is still good, but you have to really know how to use him, and I think you have to pick your battles when he's really being really effective. Indeedee Male is like, I want to put it in C because it sucks. Because the issue with Indeedee Male is that Indeedee Female does everything that Indeedee Male does, but better. So it's like, why not just use this Pokemon, which I think is a solid A tier. I think Indeedee is very good. There's priority spam. It shuts down that when you're using Tailwind. It's amazing with Iron Crown. I think Indeedee is a very strong Pokemon, and it can add support to teams that even don't require Side Spam. I think there's a lot of good teams out there that you can run that don't even involve running the Side Spam partner. I think usually you will. But it's just more of a flexible Pokemon. I think a lot of people really enjoy using Indeedee, and I think it's a really strong Pokemon. Alecki is definitely like that B+ tier, B tier. It's like not great, but it's good at what it kind of does. It's really fast, and in Tailwind it can help you create like speed advantages, but it's just kind of a really mid wand. I think Regidrago is also like A tier. I think it's a strong Pokemon, but it's just simply not, it can't touch Flutter Mane, and that alone makes it like eh. But it's so good at killing everything else that it has to be like a good Pokemon. I think Regidrago is good. It's just that like Flutter Mane's existence does invalidate it a little bit. I think Ursula Blood Moon is really insane right now. I want to say it's probably going to go down in usage. I think it's probably A tier, but like everyone's using it, and it's so damn good. You can use it with Tailwind, you can use it with Trick Room. It's just such a menace to me that Ursula Blood Moon has to be like at least A tier right now. I do think it's going to go down. I think that people are starting to figure out how to play around it and like slow its progress down. I think people will run counters, like really specific answers to it. But right now, the spawn is just a menace. I won't be surprised if it has another great showing in Europe. Obviously, the Ursaluna and Blood Moon gods themselves live there, so I expect Ursaluna to pop off and do pretty well in Europe. But I do think it's like kind of on the decline, but it's just got so many good tools, and it's just so good in Trick Room that it has to be good. Regular Ursaluna, I think, is in B+. I think it's like a decent mon. I think sleeping on the Guts version is always troll. I think this mon is pretty good. I really do think that Ursaluna Blood Moon, or Ursaluna regular is still viable. It's just that the Blood Moon version is just so potent right now because you don't need to waste that turn setting up. But I think this mon's always kind of decent, okay? I think it's decent. I think it's viable. Armor Rouge is kind of B tier as well. I don't think it's actually bad. I think it's a pretty strong Pokemon. The only issue is that, like, I think Iron Crown is kind of outshining it, and this tier list doesn't actually have Hatterene, but I would say Hatterene is probably B+, where it's like a little bit better than Armor Rouge. It's a little bit easier to set up Trick Room with. It's not susceptible to fake out. It's not susceptible to Spore or Taunt or stuff like that. So it's a little easier to set up Trick Room sometimes, especially with the Terra type. So I think Hatterene is just a little better, but Armor Rouge is still like useful. I think all these Pokemon have like a niche, and with the right team or right playstyle, maybe they're actually really good. It's just that right now, I'm not seeing them as super, super viable as something like even Hatterene would be. Like, Glamora is definitely probably A. I probably need to move some guys up into A+, but Glamora has been, I'll put it in A+. I think Glamora is really good right now. I'll move Ursaluna Blood Moon up right now, too. I think it is that good. It's just, we're just not seeing a ton of it. But I think Glamora is also, or I think it's, sorry, we're not seeing a ton of it. We're seeing so much of it, but I think it's just going to decline because so many people are going to play against it. And it's just going to be, people are looking for answers to beat Blood Moon Ursaluna. But does it make it go down in tier? Probably not. But Glamora is really good right now, too. It's so good on a variety of teams. I think the Meteor Beam set is just so good. Meteor Beam is just what puts Glamora over the top. It's now, like, one-shotting things that would normally counter it. It can one-shot Lando Eye. It does huge damage. Hitting it with any physical move feels horrible. You can switch it into fake outs. It just has so much flexibility, but its set is just locked in and it's so good. Like, Meteor Beam, Power, or Meteor Beam, Sludge Bomb, Earth Power, Spiky Shield. Perfect set. It does so much damage. It's actually pretty bulky. Its stats are amazing. I think Glamora is fantastic. Dondozo and Tots are probably, like, you never want to count them out because, like, they are really just that menace. But, like, I think they are, like, I want them together. I think that they are really good. It's just that we have to wait and see. Someone will reinvent Tatsugiri, Dondozo, but I think they're always A tier. They're so obnoxious to deal with. They're good. They're good. Like, right now, there's not really, like, a Dozo Tots team that I can think of that's, like, super good. There was a team that did get top 8 at the last European tournament, but I wouldn't say it's, like, super broken, super crazy. But it does feel like we're going to see another one soon, and they're going to take over the meta once again. Annihilate is also kind of, like, it's kind of that niche B tier. Like, it has more options for beat up, but, like, I don't know. There's a lot of things. There's like, this guy's on like 70% of teams or whatever, 60% of teams. So like every team just has Follow Me. So instantly that just weakens Annihilate because he really needs to get beat up. So I think Farigiraf is definitely A+. I think Farigiraf is insane. It's one of the most consistent Trick Room setters I've ever seen. And it has a nice variety of moves, supportive or not, that just allow it. It can deal decent damage. Its typing's cool. You can run fairy coverage on it. It just adds so much. It's so good with Ursaluna Blood Moon. You can just, like, obviously Wolf even slapped it on his team just as a priority answer. And I don't even think Wolf necessarily was, like, committed to Trick Room a lot of the times, but it was an option, right? It just gives him an option. So I think it's just one of those Pokemon that's just constantly giving your team just options and makes it hard to play against, because at any point Trick Room can go up, and if Trick Room goes up you might just lose. So I think Farigiraf is just like such a goat mon. I don't want to say it's S at all. I think it's definitely probably like better than Amoonguss. I think Amoonguss is probably worse than Blood Moon, but I think that Farigiraf is just so freaking good. Like, it's so worth using. I think King Gambit is really insane. I think being baiting Instant is huge, but it's also just like such a good Pokemon. Setup wise, it can one-shot almost everything in the game. Like, it's so absurd. Obviously Farigiraf slows that down a little bit, but having that priority Sucker Punch is just absurd. Black Glasses set is nutty. You could run AV. You have options there. It can run moves to deal with Incineroar as well, such as Low Kick. So like, it is a very potent Pokemon. We're seeing it paired a lot with Gouging Fire, as you're able to just Howl spam next to it. So I think Incineroar. I think King Gambit is just a really good Pokemon into a lot of what's really popular. There's obviously like ground types that can deal with it, But I think for the most part, it's just a really, really good Pokemon. Super worth using. Fluttermane, okay, there it is. The final S tier Pokemon. I don't really see anything else in S, but I think that Fluttermane, Ogerpon, and Incineroar are the gods. Fluttermane, I don't even know what to say. It does insane damage. It gets awesome moves. You can run Trick Room. You can run Specs, Sash, Booster Energy. Like, we're seeing a ton of booster speed that's being used in winning regionals. It's not winning regionals. It's doing well. Actually, I don't remember. I think Wolf says booster speed, but booster speed is absurd. Booster special attack's good. Specs is good. We saw Sash get second at a regional. Like, what's going on? This Pokemon can run anything. It can do anything. It is on almost every team for good reason. It is so broken. Iron Bundle's B tier. I think he's cool, but no one's using him. Iron Hands, also B tier. It sucks to put them there because I think they're both so good, but it's just that Iron Hands is just kind of slowed down by Incineroar and Rillaboom. We have two faster Fake Outers. It just feels like such a mid Pokemon, you know? Like, it's definitely not bad, but it's just like it needs specific compositions such as the Trick Room Giraffe and stuff, and I just don't think we're seeing a lot of the Iron Hands versions even succeed. I think people would rather use Incineroar. Baxcalibur is really cool. I think Baxcalibur is probably B as well, but he's like a sick B. These guys are like a sad B. Like, these three used to be the kings, and now they're like bad. But Baxcalibur is like a sick B. He used to be cool. He can be cool, but you have to like really build around and make him shine. I think Dragonite's actually B as well. Yeah, I don't know. Dragonite's really just kind of fallen in terms of how good it used to be. I think that there's a lot of answers to him right now, and like people are using Farigiraf and stuff, and it just kind of slows him down, and he's just not as potent as he once was. People are more prepared for the Dragonite Xianpao. I think he's unfortunately B. Hurts my heart to say. Next up, we got Porygon 2. I think this Pokemon is actually like pretty good. I want to put it in A because I think it's at the bottom of A because I think it's super viable. It's so hard to KO. Trick Room is so good on it, and its interaction with Terra Blast is really cool. No, I can't justify it. It's B. But it's a cool Pokemon. I think we could see some teams really shine with it. We saw Alex and Eric before they unfortunately got DQ'd. They were using P2, and it created such a cool team. We saw some some people who stole the team, used the team, and did really well with it at Nox. And so I think that the Pokemon, like the team itself is pretty cool, and I think P2 is a sick Pokemon. It's just that you got to find the right composition for it, and I really do think P2 is a great Pokemon. I think it could be A, but I can't justify it yet. Putting it in A. Torkoal's also he's like a B tier mon too. He's not super splashable, but I think the teams you can put him on are like, he's pretty decent. Like, I think Sun teams are cool. Torkoal boosts Fluttermane. It's always a viable Pokemon if it's boosting Fluttermane. That's all I have to say. Empoleon's like similar vein down here. It's like, why use Ogerpon? Or why use Empoleon when we can use Ogerpon? That's simply the question. I think Whimsicott goes in this like support B tier, where it's like a cool Pokemon and it adds cool supportive options, but it's just like, why not use Tornadus? He just feels more consistent, more potent. Dragonbolt's cool too. He's kind of like the dragon. The dragons are all kind of B. It's where like, if you find the right usage for them, they can really shine. I've lost a Dragonbolt before. I think it is a good Pokemon, but it just seems to be like you have to commit all these resources to it, and like sometimes just even the Tailwind teams kind of just shut it down, and it feels kind of awful. Gouging Fire I think is an A. Gouging Fire is really good. I think Gouging Fire goes with the Fire guys. But I think Gouging Fire is really sick. I think there's multiple sets you can run. You can run DD. You can run the supportive Booster Energy Howl set, which is just tearing up the game right now. It's so good. A lot of people are really into it. I think it's a solid A tier mon. He outspeeds Fluttermane. He does huge damage with Heavy Slam. Commonly his partner is like King Gambit, which deters Intimidate a little bit. So like, I think that they're just like a match made in heaven, like Gouging Fire and King Gambit, and I think that Gouging Fire kind of helps him out right now, and I think that's where the more successful King Gambit teams have arisen, is around Gouging Fire. I think the Pokemon is just really, really good. Iron Boulder is like, he's got to be around there. I think he's got some viability. He really does. He has a move that goes through Protect. I think his typing is okay. Offensively, it's pretty decent, but he just seems kind of eh. Latios and Latios, I don't know why Latios' head is cut off, but Latios is definitely around there. He's definitely chilling around there. I think Latios is like similar to Latios in a way, but like it's a little more damage oriented, but like I think they're both just kind of like eh. I think I'd rather just use something else. I think they actually are probably below Cresselia. Cresselia is cool. Ninetales is, again, like, there's a lot of cool supporter mons that you can just fit in this niche, or like they are neat, they're not bad, but you just don't see them a lot. I think you have to have a really specific team to make something like Clefairy, Ninetales, or Whimsicott shine. But they definitely can show up in tournaments, and I could see them doing really well with the right pilot and the right team. Ogerpon Rock is cool. He's probably like down here. Like, I think it's a cool Pokemon. It has a lot of cool resistances. It's just that Rock Grass kind of sucks. And I think it holds him back a little bit. But I think he's a good Pokemon. Ogerpon Fire is really good. I think Ogerpon Fire is A tier. It's back at being like super good. It's really good into Ogerpon Water. Because it's just mind gaming. Like, it forces the Ogerpon Water to potentially Terra. Because if you don't Terra, the +1 Fire Cudgel will one-shot you. But if you do Terra, then if they read that and they hit you with the Grass move, it just feels uncomfortable to be Ogerpon Water sometimes into the Fire one. So obviously they both require speed control. They require like help to work it out. Obviously Ogerpon Fire won 2 regionals, so it's still very, very good. But yeah, I think A tier is a comfortable spot for it. Iron Crown feels pretty strong. It feels like a B tier mon though, like where it's definitely like a strong Pokemon, but it's just not. I'm gonna move P2 down, but it's not. I think you have to commit a lot to it, and it just kind of seems like we just haven't seen a lot of it succeed. Like lately, I think it's been just going down in terms of stocks, but it is an annoying Pokemon to play against. You have to have answers for it on your team. Okay, I'm gonna do Walking Wake first because then we have 3 goats, which I want to talk about. So Walking Wake is probably it's probably kind of down here with these guys. I think Walking Wake is a decent Pokemon. It's just that it kind of is reliant on Sun, and so you kind of have to run it with Torkoal, which isn't that bad because Flutter, Torkoal, Walking Wake is like a real team, or you have to run Sunny Day. But it just doesn't seem worth running. It just seems so okay that it's not worth running. Again, I'd rather use Waterpon. Okay, so now this is where it gets interesting. Urshifu Water. This Pokemon has fallen substantially. Why won't it ever let me put it first? I think it's at the top of A. I think Urshifu Water is still very, very good. And I think that it's almost being like not disrespected. It's just that the other one is so much easier to use. There's like the existence of the Water Pond makes Urshifu Water so much harder to use because you can't press Surging Strikes. And that's the whole awesome point of Urshifu is pressing Surging Strikes. And not having that sucks. So it's like, I don't know, because the mod clearly isn't bad. I think it's probably still A+, but man, I don't know. It's so good into so many of these Pokemon right here. Like, it's so good into Ursaluna. It's so good into Ogerpon Water with speed control. It's great into King Gambit. Great into Qianpao, Landorus. Just bad into, like, it doesn't love Glamora. It doesn't love Moongus or Torn. But it's just the Ogerpon Water is really just holding it back right now. And I think that's a good thing. I think that it's fine. But now Urshifu Dark is definitely so goated right now. Urshifu Dark feels so strong. It's basically kind of pushed Qianpao down a little bit. I'd say Qianpao's below there. I think this mon alone is what's holding Qianpao back a little bit. It's just like, why use Qianpao when we can use Urshifu Dark? I get to use one of the Urshifus I get on Seed Fist, which is broken. I just don't need the Sword of Ruin. So I think we're just seeing a lot of Urshifu Dark. He's just so flexible. Band's good. Sash is good. He's just doing huge damage. And he doesn't care about Ogerpon Water. He's a little bit weaker in Instant, but you still have close combat. Wicked Blow still kills Fluttermane. Obviously, they can Terra Fairy to survive it. But it's just like, let's commit the Terra for it. It's just so good in so much of the meta. Urshifu Dark is so good. He definitely deserves to be there. And then we've got ourselves Raging Bolt here. I think Raging Bolt is incredible. He's my favorite Pokemon in the DLC. He's so much fun to play with. It just won the last regional. I think Raging Bolt is probably around here-ish. I think he might be like, I think Landorus is worse than Giraffe. Giraffe and Raging Bolt are, I would say the Giraffe is actually probably right there right now, which is pretty absurd. But I think that the Giraffe and Raging Bolt are both really, really good. And yeah, I think that's about where they lie. I think this tier list looks pretty good. You guys can't really see the bad mons, but that's okay. We don't need to see them. I'm blocking Tyranitar as well. But yeah, I think this is about where I see the meta right now. This is obviously post Knoxville. So yeah, we'll see where it goes after this. We have one more European tournament, and then there's a little break, I think, for obviously North Americans. We don't play until Vancouver again. But then we got UIC, which is going to be huge. That's right after Vancouver. So This is about where I see the meta right now. I think some of the stuff could change around, but I think for the most part, I feel good about this list. Let me know what you guys think. Where am I wrong? Where am I right? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great and amazing day.